Hello everyone. In today's reading, we are going to be continuing in chapter 14. And as you remember, we were witnessing Jack and Murray hopeful as they are organizing their new company. And so you may remember that in the previous half of the chapter, they created an organization chart and they listed the various functions or positions that will be held by people in the company. So, to remind you, let me show you the organization chart of widget makers as Jack and Murray envision it. So at the very top, they have noted themselves as shareholders, and then below the line at the top of the company we have the COO, and they have 3 vice presidents reporting to them. So we had the vice president of marketing, of operations, and of finance. And each of these vice presidents also has several functions reporting to them. Okay? So this is the organization chart that they have drawn up. And as we learned last time, the next job Jack and Murray take on is writing a position contract for each position on their organization chart. A position contract, as we call it at Michael E. Gerber Companies, is a summary of the results to be achieved by each position in the company. The work the occupant of that position is accountable for, a list of standards by which the results are to be evaluated, and a line for the signature of the person who agrees to fulfill those accountabilities. Jack and Murray know that a position contract is not a job description. It is a contract rather than just a description between the company and an employee, a summary of the rules of the company's game. It provides each person in an organization with a sense of commitment and accountability. Accountability literally means stand up and be counted. Therefore, the position contract is the document that identifies who's to stand up and what they're being counted on to produce. Having completed the position contracts for the positions within their new company, Jack and Murray, as shareholders, proceed to the most critical task of their new association, naming the people to put in the boxes. And since there are only two of them, it becomes even more critical that they approach this task wisely and carefully, if they are to avoid the errors of their past. Once they have that settled, they go below the horizontal line, and in the middle of the piece of paper they draw a box in which they write the letters COO for Chief Operating Officer or President of their new corporation. The next most difficult step, of course, is to decide which one of them is going to fill that position, understanding that it can only be one of them. There can't be two chief operating officers of a company. Someone's got to be accountable. Someone's got to be in charge. Will it be Jack? Will it be Murray? They ponder the question seriously. This is the person fulfilling the role that will ultimately be accountable to Jack and Murray for the realization of their dream. After careful thought, Murray decides on his own that Jack should do it. Although Murray is the older brother, he knows in his heart that Jack has always taken his accountabilities more seriously. Jack has always been more thorough than Murray, while Murray has always been the more creative of the two. Creativity is not necessarily what's called for here. Organization is. After all, their life savings are at stake. If the business is to give them both what they want, someone will have to take it very seriously indeed. Murray confers with Jack about his decision. They both understand what's at stake here, a commitment of trust, both to each other and to the strategic objective they have fashioned together with great care. They both understand this is more than just a job. It's a heartfelt commitment. After a long discussion, they agree on Jack for COO, and Jack solemnly accepts the position as well as the authority that goes with it by signing the position contract for COO or President. Next come the three vice presidential positions: marketing, operations, and finance. Jack asks Murray if he would agree to be Vice President Marketing, since he did such an exceptional job on the marketing research project at the outset of their venture. Murray agrees enthusiastically. This is the work he had hoped to do all along, and gladly signs the Vice President Marketing position contract. Jack then signs Murray's position contract as the president on behalf of the company. Next comes Vice President Operations. Jack agrees this position because it will be difficult, he reasons with Murray, for Murray to both sell the widgets and make them at the same time. This time, Jack signs the position contract both as Vice President Operations and as President. Finally, Jack takes on the accountability of Vice President Finance and signs the position contract for that position. there's no question between Jack and Murray who's best suited for that job. Murray now assumes the positions of sales manager and advertising research manager and signs those position contracts. Jack takes the positions of production manager, service manager, and facilities manager, as well as those of accounts payable manager and accounts receivable manager, and signs those position contracts. With all position contracts signed, Jack and Murray sit back for a second time to survey what they've done. When they see it, they're shocked. Jack has been given 8 jobs to Murray's 3. Something's got to be changed. After some thought, they agree to have Murray take on the accountabilities of accounts receivable and accounts payable, as well as that of service manager. That makes it 6 jobs each. Anyone should be able to do 6 jobs on an average day, Jack and Murray think to themselves ambitiously. And finally, the organization is done. Not a bit of work had been performed on the job, and yet the two of them were able to conceive of the company, the work that needs to be done, the standards by which they would hold each position accountable, and which position is accountable to which position and specifically for what. And upon completing this one preparatory act, a sense of order swept through Jack and Murray. A sense of elation. For, despite the obvious size of the job ahead, somehow it looked doable. Somehow Jack and Murray knew they were going to get it all done. They were organized. They had some semblance of a plan. In creating their organization chart, Jack and Murray had also generated the blueprint for their franchise prototype. Prototyping the position, replacing yourself with a system. Having created a picture of the business as it will look when it's finally done, Jack and Murray start the prototyping process, but at the bottom of the organization, not at the top. They start working on the business where they start working in the business, in the position of salesperson and production person and accounts receivable clerk. Not as the owners or partners or shareholders, not as the COO or the VP marketing, but as employees at the very bottom of the organization, doing tactical work, not strategic work. Tactical work is the work all technicians do. Strategic work is the work their managers do. If Jack and Murray's business is going to thrive, they have to find other people to do the tactical work so as to free Jack and Murray to do the strategic work. The organization chart is the means through which that critical transition can be made. Let's watch as Jack and Murray go through the same growth process they experienced at the beginning of this chapter, but this time avoiding their earlier disaster by prototyping the positions in their organization chart. Jack and Murray go to work in their business, but now with a difference. They are no longer interested in working in their business. They are now focused on developing a business that works. To do that, they begin to work in an entirely different way. As Murray goes to work in the position of salesperson, he also goes to work on the position of salesperson as Vice President Marketing. As Jack goes to work in the position of production person, he also goes to work on the position of production person as Vice President Operations. In other words, Murray and Jack start building their business by looking at each position in the business as though it were a franchise prototype of its own. As Murray goes to work in the position of salesperson as a salesperson, he also goes to work on the position of salesperson by implementing the business development process of innovation, quantification, and orchestration. Likewise, when Jack goes to work in the position of production person as a production person, he goes to work on the position of production person by implementing the business development process of innovation, quantification, and orchestration. Each of them asks, what would best serve our customer here? How could I most easily give the customer what he wants while also maximizing profits for the company? And at the same time, how could I give the person responsible for that work the best possible experience? Murray begins to test the clothing he wears as a salesperson to see what colors and styles produce the greatest positive impact on the customers. He starts testing different words. He begins to think about how Widget Makers Inc. interacts with its customers and how each component of this interaction could be modified to increase its effectiveness. And as he quantifies the impact of his innovations on sales, he takes the most productive of them and writes them down in the Widget Maker's Sales Operations Manual. Before long, the Sales Operations Manual contains the exact scripts for handling incoming calls, outgoing calls, and meeting the customer at the door. The exact responses to customer inquiries, complaints, and concerns. The system by which an order is entered, returns are transacted, new product requests are acted upon, and inventory is secured. Only when the Sales Operations Manual is complete does Murray run an ad for a salesperson. But not for someone with sales experience, not a master technician, but a novice, a beginner, an apprentice. Someone eager to learn how to do it right. Someone willing to learn what Murray has spent so much time and energy discovering. Someone for whom questions haven't become answers. Someone who is open to the possibility of learning skills he hasn't developed yet, skills he wants to learn. And the ad is placed under sales in the classified section of the Sunday paper. It reads, "Come and see our turnkey operation. Come and see our money machine. No experience necessary, just an open mind and a willingness to learn. And as Murray interviews the candidates, he shows them the sales operation manual and widgets maker's strategic objective. He explains how they were created and why. He tells them the story of widget makers, the dream he and Jack conceived, to enable them to make a personal difference in the market in which they have chosen to become leaders. He shows them the organization chart, where the position of salesperson is, to which position it reports, and who in widget makers is currently accountable for that position. He talks to them about their primary aim, to determine who among them has a vision that coincides with widget maker's view of the world. And when he finds the right person, Murray hires him, hands him the sales operation manual, has him memorize the words in it, dress to code, learn the systems, and finally go to work. Using the sales system, Murray innovated, quantified, and orchestrated. At that moment, at that exact instant, Murray moves up to the position of sales manager and begins the process of business development all over again. Because at that moment, Murray has taken the most important step in freeing himself from the tactical work of his business. Murray has replaced himself with a system that works in the hands of a person who wants to work it. And now Murray's job becomes managing the system rather than doing the work. Murray is now engaged in strategic work. And while Murray did that, Jack did the very same thing for each of the tactical work positions he was responsible for. Both of them working on the business while working in it, and all according to plan. Now, Jack and Murray have learned by experience an important lesson in developing their business. A lesson every technician suffering from an entrepreneurial seizure must learn if his business and his life are to work in harmony. That your organization chart flows down from your strategic objective, which in turn flows down from your primary aim. That each is the cause of the one preceding it, and each therefore plays a part in the fulfillment of the one before it. A logic is established, an integrated whole. In this example, Widget Makers Inc. became an orderly system for creating and recreating Jack and Murray's lives. Without the organization chart, confusion, discord, and conflict become the order of the day. But with it, the direction, purpose, and style of the business are balanced, interacting purposefully and progressing with intention and integrity toward a cohesive and sensible whole. Finally, good people could come together and get something done. Sarah exhaled loudly and stretched, both arms extending fully toward the ceiling, as though she was letting go of a feeling she was having difficulty handling. "Boy," she said, "you sure don't make it easy. The minute I think I've got this entrepreneurial thing handled, you give me some more work to do." I'd like to go back over this again because I'm not sure I've got it. What you're saying is that I need to create an organization chart for All About Pies, as it will look when it's done 7 years from now, rather than the way it is now? "Yes," I responded. And that once I've created that organization chart, I need to put my name in all the positions I currently fill. "Right again," I answered. And that I need to create very detailed descriptions of each one of those positions, and then sign the position contracts for each, as though I were an employee taking responsibility for each job? "Do you mean I actually need to sign each position contract exactly as though I were that employee?" "Yes," I said, "exactly as though you were that employee. Because if your business is going to work, you are each one of those employees, until you replace yourself with someone else, that is." She continued to press forward, her eyes shining like diamonds, intense, awake, and engaged. "And the reason for that is," Sarah said, "that unless I act as I expect my employees to act, unless I work in my business exactly as I wish them to, I will never be able to create a system for doing it exactly the way I expect them to do it. In other words, unless I act in exactly the same way as I expect my employees to act, the system I create will indulge my preferences rather than what the business really needs to make it possible for everyone other than me to be as productive and happy as possible. And if I only indulge my preferences, I will never be able to replace myself with anyone other than another owner, someone just like me, someone with the same interests as an owner, someone with the same goals as mine." She paused for a moment, as though to catch her breath, and then added, "Is that what you're saying?" "Exactly," I answered. "Because it's critical, if you are to begin your business all over again, that you're able to separate yourself from the roles that you need to play, to become independent of them, rather than these roles becoming dependent on you. Remember, we talked earlier about the crazy-making nature of all your different personalities, and that the only way to eliminate that craziness is to organize yourself and the world around you as clearly as possible so you can function as clearly as possible? Well, it's the dysfunctional nature of these unconscious personalities we have to combat. It's our automatic nature we've got to organize into an intentional nature. And the only way we can do that is intentionally, not automatically. And so one part of us, the part a man called Khrushchev once called the driver, must order all the rest. The driver must take charge of the horse and carriage, Khrushchev once said. And as the owner of your business, as the driver of your business, that's your primary job, to take charge of the horse and carriage. And to do so, you must be able to differentiate among all the roles, to discriminate between what's most important and what's least important, to organize it in such a way that your best intelligence tells you your business must work. And once you have done that, once you've organized your business in the most intelligent way you can, your next most important job is to follow the rules of the game you have created with integrity. Because if you won't follow the rules, why should anyone else? If the rules don't apply to you, the leader, why should you expect anyone to follow you? If you don't obey the rules, honor them, extol them, why should you expect anyone else to take your game seriously? The answer is you can expect them to, because they won't. And that's what this whole process of organizational development is. It's the process through which you think through your business as best as you're able to, and then structure the way it is to work. Your organization chart is that structure. It is you talking to your people and the world, telling them exactly how you see your business working when it's done, when the dream is in place. It's you sharing your mind with the world. And then, once having shared it, it's you telling your people and the world that you believe enough in the vision to live it yourself. Anything less than that is sheer arrogance, I told her. But when you live by your own rules, when you walk your talk, when you live as you think, then your business will become a thing to behold. I got it, she said. I didn't have a doubt in the world you would, I responded. So, let's go on to management development, I said to Sarah as I poured her a fresh cup of tea, and then to people development, because where management, people, and systems come together, so does your prototype. Okay. So, once again, Sarah, along with you and I, are one step closer to creating a small business that works. So, thank you for listening, and until next time.